Picture this, a majestic journey of self-discovery, growth and healing. Welcome to What the Podcast, where I invite you to witness the incredible power of personal transformation. Join me as we delve into the depths of our inner landscapes, unlocking the secrets to healing and unleashing our true potential. Together we'll embrace resilience. Get ready to witness the magic of self-healing as it unfolds. Welcome and thank you for tuning into What the Podcast for this week's episode of Good Girl Era, Remaining Grounded. And if you're new here, my name is Iman Anders. I'm a content creator, not a life coach, and my podcast is based on lessons and teachings from my mentor. I'm looking forward to this week's conversation. Not only is this podcast a source of motivation and inspiration for all of you, but it also serves as a healing and therapeutic outlet for myself. A lot of the inspiration for the topics we discuss comes from my own personal experiences, the lessons I'm currently learning from, and growing in my own life and in my healing journey, and basically reflecting on the previous week that I've had and pulling some of the main things from that week and creating a topic around that. It's definitely been a mix of emotions for me. It's been a week where I felt frustrated because my efforts were negated, overwhelmed because I felt alone, but in essence it was also a week of healing. This week has been a time of personal challenges, and that combined with lady things, I decided to take it very slow and focus on self-care and my mental health and just allowing myself to go through the motions. Although this week may not have been my most productive or energetic week, I recognize the importance of these moments and slowing down within. Sometimes I remind myself that we can't always be on the go and to check in with ourselves and explore what might be happening underneath the surface. And one thing I've been reminded of this week is that the healing journey is never a straight line. People will test you only because of their lack, and we fail in response. People will gaslight you, but don't allow them to break you. People will probably misinterpret and say things because they have such a profound lack and fail. It's okay, but remember to lift yourself. Just when you thought you worked through something, a small trigger can reopen old wounds. And that's part of the process. And we learn how to navigate that. And it wasn't until I slowed down this week that I realized I was feeling overwhelmed and anxious around certain things in my life. And taking the time really allowed me to feel those things. Remember, feeling is important. In doing that, a few things came up for me that I need to work on that I really want to share with you. If you are also on this healing journey, I think that these topics will resonate with you in one way or another. This week, two main things came up for me. First was to stay grounded and rooted when life feels uncertain. Then the second thing was learning to take my power back through self-validation. And I think regardless of my path or what your personal struggles may be, I think that you can all benefit from today's episode. In today's conversation, my intention is purely just to encourage along with your own healing journey. So I hope some of you can resonate with this and that you enjoy this episode. We'll start with one of the main things from this past week, which is learning to stay grounded whenever life feels uncertain. One thing I've learned on my journey, when life is beginning to feel uncertain, the most important thing to do in these times is to find ways to remain as rooted as you possibly can. When we lack the sense of stability from within, that is when we can easily feel lost or overwhelmed, and that is exactly how I felt this entire week. As I've been trying to navigate through certain challenges in my own life, regardless of whether life feels uncertain or not, something that has been super beneficial for me was having practices in my life. I think it's important to have certain rituals ingrained in us that we can rely on when life becomes overwhelming. So for me this past week, the first thing I did was to prioritize grounding myself. And one of the things I did was to examine my mindset and my thoughts. Sometimes unintentionally, we make things harder on ourselves through the way that we perceive and interpret things. For example, she intentionally hurt me, so she doesn't deserve respect. And it's this very thinking that amplifies our struggles. And this isn't me saying you should just get over it because there's nothing you can do about it. And I often find myself gaslighting me, preaching this to myself, and I know that it's not helpful at all to heal those things. And I don't know if anyone else is like this, but sometimes I fail to recognize how serious or overwhelming something is until I take a step back to think about it. Recently, I was having a conversation with someone and I was telling them of some things that is happening in my life and the things that I'm trying to navigate. And it wasn't until I verbally expressed those things that I recognized that a lot of the things were actually heavy situations, and I actually wasn't giving myself the energy or the time to process any of it. So what I find to be more helpful, instead of trying to get over something, is practicing self-compassion, and embracing it involves, first and foremost, truly acknowledging your struggles, giving yourself the support and understanding that you need, and also reminding yourself that it's okay to feel overwhelmed. And I wanted to emphasize this because, like I said, I didn't even recognize how difficult certain situations in my life were until I took a step back and I was like, wow, this is actually really heavy. And I haven't really allowed myself to sit with this and to think about how it's affecting me. So there definitely has to be a balance between not letting something that is outside of your control stress you out and not giving yourself the time and space to actually sit with whatever is currently happening in your life. So embracing self-compassion is definitely the first step in staying grounded. And I think that it is also important to focus on what we can control instead of fixating on what we cannot. For me, this past week, I realized that a lot of stress or the feeling of overwhelm that I was experiencing were over things that I had absolutely zero control over. And that was things like miscommunication, misinterpretation, feeling unappreciated, and my efforts being thrown out the window. And once I decided to dissociate and focus on the things I could control, that in itself alleviated so much overwhelm and stress. And it's not to say that I was completely okay and my feelings were back to normal. I was definitely still a little ungrounded, but I wasn't as anxious as I was making myself feel. The first step I'd suggest is 1. Changing your mindset to the things that you can control, as well as showing yourself more self-compassion. This week I went into the mountain as I recently discovered it really grounds me. We found a cute little coffee shop. We enjoyed a walk on the beach in the blistering cold, and I realized how these things inspired me. Just doing these activities put me in a really grounded energy, and it made me shift my focus from what I was currently going through and what was in my control and what's happening in the present. I really appreciated taking it all in, my environment, getting inspired, just so I could, even for a moment, not be consumed with the things that were happening in my life. I can find gratitude in the ability to move my fingers, to move my body, and even having access to this beautiful studio to record. I can be grateful for the people who genuinely and truly support me, my creator. The list is endless. What I've been focused on is my daily routines, which includes my prayers, journaling. Most of the time, it's free writing and notes of gratitude or whatever happened that day. And then I'm also in the process of writing something, drumroll. Can't share that now, but this, along with being one with nature, keeps me really grounded. I want to get into the second thing that came up for me this week, and that's learning to take my power back through self-validation. So I was thinking, if self-validation means validating yourself, external validation means seeking it outside of you, and letting outsiders define your worth essentially means evaluating your self-worth based on opinions of others, whether you get denied, rejected, abandoned, whatever the case may be. When we don't validate ourselves, we're constantly seeking approval from others, whether we want them to show up for us or tell us what we want to hear, which can lead to us feeling empty. And we'll never feel like we're enough if we continue the cycle, and we really need to start cultivating a deep sense of awareness. And since we're speaking about gratitude, I thought I would share a little bit of my story. And almost 2 months ago, I lost my life coach to a heart attack. It felt as though I got hit with a sledgehammer in my gut. I couldn't move, and there are days, well, most days, where all I want is to speak to her, and she's simply not there. She taught me the power of healing and remaining grounded, yet in the moments where I had to make her proud, I failed. But she also taught me that it's okay as long as we feel it, acknowledge, and do better. We only truly appreciate people when they're no longer there, and I'd like to honor my coach, Kashifa Adams, for being such a fundamental part of my growth. I'm grateful for the life I get to experience because of her. So to conclude this episode, 2 things to take with you. Work on your grounding routines and taking your power back. Nothing is more important than you. Thank you for listening, and I hope this episode was as enjoyable as the process of creating it. Join us next week on What the Podcast as we unpack the meaning of self-awareness.